Okay. I'm going to talk about global trends in sulfur reduction in fuels and how this affects the exhaust air pollution which comes out of vehicles. So we already heard a lot about diseases and how this relates to air pollution and particulate matter, so I'm not going to elaborate on this. We know that particulate matter is the cause for a multitude of diseases, and therefore, as Ahmed already presented in his presentation, is linked to cost. Yeah? But because at the end of the day, people are getting ill, and this is associated to cost. So we are faced with an analysis of benefits and costs at a very rational level. So therefore, although we all know that increasing or improving fuel quality is linked to major investments, we know that the quality of crude oil is declining, and in the same time we want to have more quality fuels. So basically this means we need to increase complexity of refineries. We need to increase the demand of hydrogen. We need to increase all kinds of equipment in refineries, and this is of course related to investment. But then on the other side, if we are not doing anything, as Ahmed showed in his presentation, then this will lead to costs. And there seems to be quite a big certainty that these costs might be much larger than the investments which are needed. Therefore, it is very reasonable to improve refineries and to improve the quality of fuels. If you look at the main sources of particulate matter, this is an example for Nairobi, but it will look very similar for many cities in the world. Then we see that traffic is actually the main contributor to particulate matter. Again, if traffic is the main contributor to particulate matter, and if this is very closely related to fuel quality, then of course we should do something about fuel quality. This slide shows annual average particulate matter levels for a couple of major cities around the world. The red line shows the limit suggested by the World Health Organization as to what is acceptable for human health without having a big impact. What we see is that many cities around the world are largely exceeding that threshold of about 20 ppm, 20 microgram per cubic meter, and we also see that Greater Cairo area is well above these air pollutant levels. Black carbon, particulate matter, is not only an air pollutant, but it is also a climate change driver. Yeah? Now it is believed that after CO2 emissions, black carbon might actually be the second most important driver for climate change. So we are tackling two issues. We are not only tackling air pollution, but we are also tackling climate change issues the moment we are reducing particulate matter in the exhaust of cars. Therefore, UN Environment has quite a couple of programs to support these kind of activities. Today, for this event, the Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles is the most important one. The Partnership of Clean Fuels and Vehicles has three pillars: the elimination of lead from fuels, the reduction of sulfur in fuels, and the harmonization and improvement of vehicle standards to make sure that cleaner vehicles are getting to the markets in the world. Nowadays, we're also looking into a fourth activity. This is the issue of used vehicles. Used vehicles and the global trade of used vehicles has an enormous impact on air quality, for example, in countries in North Africa and in Sub-Saharan Africa. Therefore, that is getting a more and more important topic. But our other programs, they also are either directly or indirectly linked to the topic of air pollution and particulate matter. For example, we are having a program together with the Climate and Clean Air Coalition on soot-free buses to bring better buses to the cities. Because what we see is, although in terms of climate change, buses are not a big contributor, but in terms of air pollution, buses are a very big contributor in urban air quality. We are also working on electric mobility. If we divert to other fuels, to fuels which are less polluting, then of course this will have an impact on air pollution. Therefore, electric mobility is an important pillar of what we are doing at UN Environment. We are working on making vehicles more efficient. First and foremost, if you use less fuel, then you will also emit less pollutants, no matter what air pollutant treatment system you have. Therefore, it is also very important to improve the efficiency of cars. And last but not least, we are also working on transport, on forms of transport which are not motorized. Basically looking at walking and cycling. How can we build cities in a way that these modes of transport are actually supported, and that we divert travel demand from the use of individual cars to either non-motorized transport or public transport. These are the programs we are supporting. There's a very clear relationship between the concentration of sulfur in fuels and the actual particulate emissions of vehicles. If we go to 50 ppm sulfur fuels, we will reduce particulate emissions by already 75%. If we go to ultra-low sulfur fuels, 10 to 15 ppm, then there will be almost no particulate emissions in the exhaust of cars. So therefore, it is very important and very valuable to look into the quality of fuels. In PCFV, in the Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles, we had a predecessor, a campaign which targeted the reduction or the elimination of lead in gasoline. And we have to say that nowadays we're almost done. There are only 2 countries left in 2019 which still sell leaded fuels in the country. While in 2002, we still had a lot of countries which either sold only leaded fuels or which both provided leaded and unleaded fuels. By 2019, this picture has changed completely. Now, the same magnitude of action is necessary to target the level of sulfur in fuels. And already today we see very significant progress. If you look back into 2005, a lot of countries had fuels with sulfur levels higher than 2,000 ppm, even higher than 5,000 ppm. And only Europe already introduced ultra-low sulfur fuels. Now in 2019, this formerly orange and red map changed for large areas into a green and blue map. Only a couple of countries are left which have still very polluting fuels. And now we need to work on these countries to improve the situation. Of course, we know that for countries like Egypt, having a big capacity for refining, this is a much more difficult and more costly process than for other countries which are largely dependent on fuel imports. But it also provides the opportunity to not only import fuels, but to also sell fuels. What Egypt is doing already right now. But to basically sustain, to be a player in the global market, the fuel quality need to be improved. Otherwise, it will be hard at some point in the future to sell fuels on the global market. It is very important to not only look at fuel quality, but to really understand that the alignment of regulation is key. All the things needs to go together. Fuel quality is very strongly related to vehicle emission standards. and at some point vehicle emission standards are related to actual real-world testing and maintenance of the vehicle. Yeah? Without good fuel quality, good quality fuels in place, you can have the best vehicle, but that vehicle will not perform at its designed level. Yeah? So fuel quality and vehicle emission standards need to be aligned. If you look at light-duty vehicle emission standards worldwide, then we see that already today, most countries in Europe, in North America, in Latin America have vehicle emission standards of Euro 3 and above, which basically means that we need fuels of at least 150 ppm. But now we need to move further, yeah? And in Europe, we are already at this stage. In North America, we are at this stage. In Japan, we are at this stage to have ultra-low sulfur fuels. Now, this also needs to be achieved here in the region. What this map is showing, the life expectancy or reduced life expectancy due to the exposure to particulate matter. It shows a state of the art for the year 2000 and the projection for the year 2020 for Europe. It is clear that the combination of high quality fuels and high quality vehicles can really improve air quality and can thus lead to reduced cost in the health sector. Environment has a couple of tools and information packages to offer. For example, the UNEP Partnership for Clean Fuels and Vehicles is offering the regulatory toolkit, which provides a wealth of information on how to design policies to actually achieve good vehicles and good fuel quality in the country. It promotes a system approach to link fuel quality to vehicle emission standards. And of course, we are providing support to countries to develop strategies and also to develop programs to actually inventorize and monitor air quality. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition has the heavy-duty diesel initiative. This initiative is focusing on bringing the right technology to all markets. In particular, the soot-free bus project tries to achieve that vehicle manufacturers are actually offering the right products everywhere in the markets. But for this, right fuel quality is a prerequisite. No vehicle manufacturer will bring buses into a market where the vehicle the fuel quality is not sustained, and the vehicle manufacturer is taking over risks which they don't want to take over. So basically, fuel quality is key to get the right vehicles into the market. As I said before, we are now broadening the scope. We are looking at used vehicles. The entire continent of Africa probably imports 95 of its vehicles which are used. These vehicles are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old in its maturity, which now means that since Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 6 standards are already in place and have been in place in Europe for a long time, vehicles which come to markets, to local markets, actually could perform well if they were maintained correctly and if the fuel which was available in the country would sustain this technology. So there's a huge opportunity to actually benefit from these vehicles which have already pretty good exhaust treatment systems in place, and to also make sure that the exhaust treatment systems are still working once that vehicle comes into the market here. So these new issues are now high on the agenda to make sure that that vehicles which are coming into North Africa, which are coming into Sub-Saharan Africa, are actually good vehicles. For that, we just recently published the used vehicle report. This used vehicle report offers an inventory over used vehicle streams globally, used vehicles coming from Europe to West Africa, used vehicles coming from Japan through Middle East to East Africa, used vehicles coming from North America to West Africa. We need to make sure that these vehicle streams are in order so that we are not just dumping bad technology into a market. Of course, now the world is moving to more efficient vehicles, to cleaner vehicles, and this means finally electric mobility. UN Environment has a huge program on promoting electric mobility with tackling different aspects, tackling normative work, looking into regulatory aspects, looking into operational aspects, not only developing theoretic papers, but also trying to demonstrate electric vehicles in low and middle income countries. This will be a huge opportunity for many countries. And we also think that mobility in many low and middle income countries will follow patterns from the past. This basically means used vehicles again will play a huge role. And already today, for example, you can buy electric vehicles in Kenya. You can buy them through Japanese importers. And if you look at the price of a Nissan Leaf, then it comes to Mombasa at the cost of about $10,000, which is maybe $4,000 more than a comparable conventional vehicle. Now, if you think about the fact that total cost of ownership, which means fuel costs and maintenance costs will be lower, these vehicles will have an economic benefit at the end of the day. And this also means people will use them and people will import them. So electric mobility, of course, is also a great opportunity to increase air quality. We just recently established a CHEF 7 Global Electric Mobility Program. It actually had been approved by the CHEF only the last week. This means we will now start working in more than 30 countries worldwide to demonstrate electric vehicles, to put in place or to develop together with the partners electric mobility policies, to think about business models and finance schemes to overcome the still higher investment costs. And this will also be a big work stream for the coming years. That's it from my side. Thank you.